Miller's grocery had stood at the corner of Maple and 7th for as long as anyone in town could remember. Its quaint, old-fashioned facade seemed out of place amid the encroaching modern buildings, yet it remained a beloved landmark. But there was something peculiar about Miller's, a subtle eeriness that settled in after dark. The bell jingled as Sarah pushed open the door, her shoes echoing against the worn wooden floor. It was late, but she needed a few essentials. Mr. Miller, the elderly owner, stood behind the counter, his glasses perched on the edge of his nose, as he skimmed through an ancient ledger. "Evening, Mr. Miller," Sarah greeted, offering a warm smile. "Evening, Sarah," he replied, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Late night?" "Just needed a few things," she said, grabbing a basket and heading down the first aisle. The lights above flickered as she walked, casting long, dancing shadows. Sarah shivered, dismissing it as her imagination. She picked up a carton of milk and a loaf of bread, the usual essentials, before heading to the back of the store for some canned goods. The canned goods aisle was oddly cold. Sarah rubbed her arms, glancing around. The store was empty save for her and Mr. Miller, yet she felt she was being watched. She quickly grabbed the needed cans and headed back toward the front. Halfway there she heard a whisper, like a distant conversation. Sarah stopped, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, but she couldn't distinguish the words. Her heart pounded in her chest as she hurried to the counter. "Everything all right, Sarah?" Mr. Miller asked, looking up from his ledger with a concerned expression. Yeah, just in a bit of a rush," she lied, forcing a smile. She handed him the items, glancing around nervously. The whispers had stopped, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As Mr. Miller rang up her purchases, Sarah noticed an old, faded photograph on the wall behind him. It showed the store but looked different, newer, bustling with people. Among the faces she recognized Mr. Miller, much younger, standing proudly in front. "Is that you?" she asked, pointing to the photograph. Mr. Miller turned, his expression softening with nostalgia. "Yes, that was taken many years ago when my father ran the store." Sarah's gaze shifted to a shadowy figure in the photo's background, almost hidden among the others. "Who's that?" she asked, her finger hovering over the figure. Mr. Miller's face darkened. That's my brother Samuel." Sarah sensed the hesitation in his voice. "I didn't know you had a brother." "He disappeared years ago. We never found out what happened to him," Mr. Miller said quietly, the sadness evident in his tone. Sarah nodded, sensing it was a sensitive topic. She paid for groceries and left, the bell jingling softly behind her. That night, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She tossed and turned, the whispers from the store echoing in her mind. Eventually, exhaustion overtook her, and she fell into a restless sleep. She dreamt of Miller's grocery, but it was different, darker, the aisle stretching into infinity. Shadows lurked at the edges of her vision, and the whispers were more insistent. Sarah wandered the aisles, trying to find a way out, but the store seemed to close in around her. "Sarah," a voice called, clear and close. She turned to see Samuel, the shadowy figure from the photograph standing before her. His eyes were hollow, his expression tormented. "Help me," he whispered, reaching out. Sarah woke with a start, her heart racing. She sat up, trying to calm herself. It was just a dream, she told herself. Just a dream. The next day, Sarah returned to Miller's grocery. She had to know more about Samuel. Mr. Miller looked surprised to see her. "Back so soon?" he asked. "Mr. Miller, I need to know more about your brother," Sarah said, trembling. Mr. Miller sighed, motioning for her to sit. Samuel was troubled. He was always talking about strange things, seeing things that weren't there. One night he just vanished. We searched everywhere, but he was gone. Sarah hesitated, then recounted her dream. Mr. Miller's eyes widened, his face paling. "Samuel's spirit must be trapped in the store," he said, his voice shaking. "I felt his presence for years, but I never knew how to help him." Determined to free Samuel's spirit, Sarah and Mr. Miller devised a plan. They stayed in the store that night, waiting for the whispers to return. The temperature dropped as the clock struck midnight, and the shadows lengthened. "Samuel," Mr. Miller called softly, his voice breaking. "It's time to come home." The whispers grew louder, and the shadowy figure of Samuel appeared, his expression one of desperation and longing. "Help me," he repeated, echoing through the store. Sarah stepped forward, her heart pounding. "We're here, Samuel. We'll help you." A chill swept through the store, and for a moment everything was silent. Then Samuel's figure slowly began to fade, the shadows retreating. "Thank you," his voice whispered one last time before disappearing completely. The store seemed to brighten, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Mr. Miller wiped away tears, a sad smile on his face. "Thank you, Sarah. He's at peace now." From that night on, Miller's grocery felt different, lighter, more welcoming. The whispers were gone, and the sense of unease had lifted. Sarah continued to shop there, always greeted warmly by Mr. Miller, the two of them sharing a silent bond over the spirit they had set free. Months passed, and Miller's grocery thrived as a cornerstone of the community. Sarah and Mr. Miller often exchanged knowing glances, the shared secret of Samuel's release bonding them in an unspoken camaraderie. One day, as Sarah was browsing the aisles, she noticed a new photograph on the wall. It was a recent picture of the store, with smiling customers and Mr. Miller standing proudly at the entrance. Next to it, a framed note in a delicate script read, "In memory of Samuel, forever in our hearts, forever at peace." The bell jingled as Sarah left the store, a warm breeze following her into the sunny afternoon. She looked back, feeling a sense of fulfillment and closure. The shadows that once lingered were gone, replaced by the comforting hum of a community brought closer together. Miller's grocery wasn't just a store anymore. It was a place of healing where the past and present coexisted harmoniously. As Sarah walked away, she smiled, knowing that some spirits, once freed, could finally rest and allow the living to flourish.